Morning, everyone. Welcome to my post second win video. I actually recorded one yesterday, but I was so tired that I realized it wasn't that good. I also started talking about my games like a little in depth, and then halfway through I was like, I don't want to talk about my games that in depth without pictures and stuff. It doesn't help. I don't think it's that interesting to go super in depth about the games. Uh, I'll show you like the 6 games I played. I'll talk about the squads. We'll talk about the roster, thoughts in general, blah, blah, blah. First off, had a great time at second win. If you haven't gone, venue's great. Location was easy. Airport's right there. Good food all around. Good people. Had no issues there. This was the roster I brought. You guys have heard me talk about this multiple times. So there's nothing special there. We'll talk about potential changes afterwards. So I did go 5-1. I lost round 2 to Graham playing Kingpin. So we played against him. We played against Wakanda in our first game. That was very tight. Very scary to play Wakanda. Very nice player. He wasn't bad or anything like that. But I feel like with Wakanda, like I've played mediocre Wakanda players and I've played pretty good Wakanda players, and it's just the same shit. Like, it doesn't feel different. It's just like, am I gonna get what I need? Am I gonna get one shot a bunch? Like, obviously they can make mistakes and it helps, but it can get just real scary on like decision making there. I played against Graham. We got I love Scoundrels. You guys heard me say I love Scoundrels, and then I got Kingpin on it, and I was like, ooh, that's probably the one thing I didn't want to play on Scoundrels. He had priority. It was close. It was a good game. Graham was a great opponent. I basically, he had a Hawk, and one turn I planesed him and tried to go all in to kill him. Not totally all in, but I put a lot of attacks into him and just didn't get there, and that kind of hurt because I was already behind from earlier stuff. So anyway, good game there. Then I played some webs on Scoundrels, killed some webs. Played 2. So the next 2 games are at least interesting from the team perspective. So I played Nagel. I don't actually remember his real name. I don't know. And then I played Quinn. Quinn was very nice. He writes great articles. I really enjoyed playing him and talking to him. So those 2 games were in specific Scientific Samples Infinity Formula, and I ran the same 17 both times. And I'll talk about the squads. I have them. I made a sheet with the squads I ran. And then I played Gurn, who's obviously a good friend of mine for a long time, the guy I traveled with. Obviously, you go 6 rounds. I've only played one of these people before, which I played Nagel at Squad Goals, and I played Gurn. So there was a lot of meatmen and stuff near the top, so it wasn't surprising I got one of them eventually. And then I ended up beating his Shadowlands on Wedding Party. So these were the teams I took in order. So round 1, so this was Wakanda, this was Kingpin, this was Webs, this was Defenders, and this was what I took on Wedding Party Hammers. I think the thing to kind of note out is I only brought Strange once, and it was the game I lost. He was not the reason I lost. He was still very good there. And I would take him again. And yeah, I took Juggernaut every game. Juggernaut's the only model I took every game. And he was very good. I gotta admit, I really liked him. Yeah, I mean, these were the teams I took. I'll say 2 comments about, especially like maybe these games or somewhat these games. After I had lost, I was always trying to win, but I was a little bit more like, I'm gonna fuck this. I'm gonna do it without Strange, just for the narrative of like, I'm gonna win every game without him. In hindsight, I do think these squads are good, but just for what it's worth, I was a little bit like, screw you, Strange. I'm not gonna play you here. Though I don't think he was particularly like above and beyond in any of them. So one highlight, I guess, coming out of the event, or highlight or something, I really think this team is really good. Specifically, I played it on Infinity and Samples twice, and maybe this will be interesting. So let me pause and bring up TTS, and then we'll talk a little more. All right, we're back, and I set up the board because this was actually something I do think is kind of interesting to talk about. Um, Tactics cards aren't showing up, but I played Brace, Do You Know Who I Am, Journey, Sack, Bars, Robbery. I mean, it makes sense. Two of the cards are attached to their characters, and then I don't need books with this. It's really Planes is not that good with this, so it's really Journey through Limbo, and then my two restricted. So nothing crazy there. So I just want to talk about this a little bit because I think it was an interesting setup, and I think there's an interesting conversation to be had about other 17s you could run and just how it interacts with maybe samples. So, um, the reason I think this team is kind of interesting. So what you could take here is I think no matter what at 17, you're almost always taking these two unless you run two unaffiliated threes because most people don't run two unaffiliated threes. So even if you have strange, like you could say open roster, you could say you could run like this is a something that people talk about, right? This and then a three. So it could be Lizard, it could be Zemo, it could be, I mean, if you take Taskmaster, then you have all affiliated air quotes. And I do think that like that. I think 5-4-3-3-2 is one of the better 17s for convocation. I mean, there's people who run the four wide stuff. I'm not a huge fan of it, but it clearly has done some good stuff. I mean, maybe on this one I'm more specifically not as a fan of it though. Maybe it works. I guess I can see some of the similarities of how this plays to how some of those play, which you'll hear about. But like even this one, like I don't think this is a bad squad. Let's just say it's Lizard, right? I know that's what Zach Cohen talks about playing. I don't know. There's just something about like the thing I found about Juggernaut when playing, and again I like Doctor Strange, is he's just tanky. Like from a perspective of let's just say because these two are essentially replacing uh, Strange and Voodoo in this kind of sense, right? These two are always there, and then you have him who could be, if you don't take these two, it could be like a Lizard or something. And I think my reasoning is, I don't know. There's something about these two being big base, being tanky is probably the thing that I like the most. They're very hard to double tap. You know, they have really big bumps. They move around they're very fast. Like from a perspective of Infinity and like going left to right, Rhino is so much faster than Voodoo is, and I think that actually has a lot of like value there. How far can he get? He can get there with the slide, right? Yeah, he has to be able to, right? Yeah. I don't think Voodoo can get there. Yeah. Okay. Cool. He can walk slide, get to the other side if he really wants to. Yeah. So what I tried to do when I played these was, I mean, I didn't have priority either time, so I didn't have the opportunity to do. I was kind of relying on my opponent a little bit to dictate who I was going to pick up with. But ideally, I would try to get one on Taskmaster, and then I would try to get ideally I would get one on Taskmaster on the side that maybe they're not. Like I want Juggernaut across from the one they're gonna pick up if they don't have a safe grab, so I can kind of try to punish it. And then I want like Taskmaster or Rhino to pick up one and just be like annoying to like kill. And obviously you could say Rhino, why would you want one on Rhino? I mean Rhino could go in the middle. I think one game he couldn't pick it up. I think maybe even in hindsight, you don't need Rhino somebody to pick up the middle one. I definitely don't want Jugs to pick up the middle one. I think it's either Rhino or no one. I'm just trying to see. I know that you can make it to the Infinity. I'm trying to see how close you have to be. You have to basically be like right on it. Okay. This is important because what I'm trying to do, and this is not something I did in the game itself, but I'm curious how. I know if I park Taskmaster here, he can't make it to here. So I'm curious how close. I'm curious if there's a world where Taskmaster can I want to be able to have him here to be able to get this one or grab this one and still go this way if I so choose. So basically, I want the option to say I'm going to pick up this one or I'm going to get this one and go to either side depending on which one's safer because I want him to be safe. And he's tanky enough to do it, and with Bump and Wong and stuff, you should be fine. So let's just say I'm here. Let's just look real quick. It shouldn't be that hard to do. That's probably a little bit more over. That should be close enough to be able to do both. So let's just say it is. Does he make it to over here? Does? Looks like it. Maybe. Huh. Yeah, it's pretty easy, actually. He pretty easily makes it there. Okay, cool. So it is possible. So that's like what I would want to do with him. My goal is to like either grab the back one or grab the side one. And then you like put Juggernaut across from one. And you can do kind of whatever with these guys. I mean, they have to go somewhere. Like, you want somebody on the back one for punish purposes. I probably don't want Rhino on the same side as Wong, and then, you know, Wong can be... It's very contextual in the enemy, but, like, you could do something like this, and you could say, all right, if they pick up... I mean, in this situation, they're probably going to pick up this one, but that's fine. I think you want Rhino and Juggernaut separate because you want Juggernaut to either... You want to punish with one of the two. All right? You want either Juggernaut... I think you want Juggernaut or Rhino to pick up potentially, and you want like a punish potentially. There's a lot of little things here. I mean, is this good? Yeah. I think the general idea is... Let's just kind of get to the turn one stuff is whatever. I think the general idea is you can very easily score 5 points round one, right? It's very hard for people to deny your back points plus these, especially because Rhino and Juggernaut can pick it up and be on the back point because of their big bases. Again, that is significant, right? They can pick it up, be on the back point. They're hard to displace. So, like, depending on what happens, you could be, like, here. Magic could be here. He could pick it up and go to whichever side he wants, right? So you'd have one, potentially, maybe one of these. So you're probably scoring 5 points turn one. And the enemy might be 2. It really depends on which side they're on. But the thing is, sample scores very fast. And you have a lot of displacement to mess up their samples, right? You have Journey Through Limbo. You have Do You Know Who I Am? You have his push. You can Robbery. I mean, you might not think that's a lot, but a 17 threat, especially when you're bringing 2 big boys, people don't actually have a ton of displacement for you. I mean, they can bring Bill and like throw you and stuff, but it also depends on activation order. If you have last activation, that's the other thing about Jugs that's really nice is if he goes and grabs this, he's probably in very little danger. I mean, especially if like Wong is on the same side of him. Like, what are you gonna do to him? You know what I mean? Like, he's gonna bump backwards. He has reduction. It's very hard to double tap him and stay on your thing. And then even if he goes backwards, his play pattern of walk slide will get him where he needs to go. And if he gets to go last, there's a good chance he can like walk, slide, and like punch you off or throw somebody. Do you know who I am? Them like over here. And I mean, in one of my games, I think he started like up here. And then by the end of the turn, he like walked, got tricks and traps, bumped. Do you know who I am? Goblin back here, and then like walk, slid all the way back here to finish the game, and like all his models were like stuck. So like both these guys can rotate really well with attacks and slides. Magic with Journey Through Limbo can start here and go like walk, place, Journey Through Limbo somebody off if they need to. And I guess what I'm saying is it's not that hard to score like 5-6-5. Both games I played ended in turn 3, and it could have went longer. I was up a pretty good bit in both, but like even Rhino, you know, if he doesn't get to pick this up and, you know, they pick it up and he can't displace them, you could just like walk, attack them. Because if they're, the other thing too is, you know, you have to be within 1-2 inches for, you know, to get the bonus point. So if you're within 2 inches here, Rhino can walk, attack you, and place behind you, and depending on if you have a model, you know, you need a big base to be on both, which is very efficient for these guys. But this is where he just sits on your back point, and now turn 2, he's starting with 3 power minimum. And I think in one game I gave him a power turn 1 just to have it. And if he does a damage, he's starting top of 2 with robbery and pickup power. And if the enemy doesn't have any steals and you have a sample on Rhino and Juggernaut with Bump and Wong, it's not easy to get it back. And like I said, very easy to deny the bonus point of the enemy at some point and just rotate away if they're not fast enough. Like, any one of these models can easily go side to side except for like him and Wong, but that's okay. Sometimes you need a decoy just to do stuff and be annoying. Maybe he has it and he's just sitting on the side. Like one game, he picked one up and just sat on the enemy thing because the enemy like rotated away from him. He could have been any 3 at that point. Sure, if you're like Lizard and you get to walk, throw, it has a little bit more power to it, but I don't know. This team just felt really good on that setup, and I know it's very specific, but I don't know. I like the 17 a lot. I think it actually has decent legs on like Extremis as well. Like you have a backpoint sitter in Wong. If you just say that Taskmaster, your job is to go pick something up. Go pick something up. And then you have 2 people who are like, again, very tanky, very fast when they get power. And so being able to rotate and keep healing, if these guys can get the points, they're very hard to deal with. So I don't know. That was just a squad that I like enjoyed and kind of wanted to talk about. So I almost think it's better than that other team, and I think Bump really helps it. So back to again, sorry, I took a big detour on that thing. Second win was very fun. I won 5 games. I lost 1. I have no other commentary. Great opponents. It was nice to meet Quinn and play Graham for the first time. I've met them, but I haven't played them. So that was nice, and everyone else was nice too. These are the teams I brought. The list itself, as I said, I only played Strange once. I think I played Strange twice in the last 10 games I've played, 11 games I've played. And that's not a knock on Strange as much as just I've been trying it, and I think it can work. I think if you're new to Convocation, you should play Strange. I think it works perfectly fine. I think this is an interesting, to my sense, we'll say, take on it. And not that it's super new to it. I think from a list perspective, what I would probably change, I kind of hate to say it, but I would probably drop Dracula. I used Dracula a little bit, but I haven't used him like a ton. I think what the real thing is, he's really there for like if you think about all the Crisis, right? Let's just go to Crisis. And you think of Secures mainly, because the shape of the matters more than this stuff, right? He's not great on Ds. Like, you'd rather have Juggernaut. Like, if you think, okay, you can take Juggernaut and Dracula, but let's just kind of put those teams aside a little bit. I'd rather have Juggernaut. I'd rather have Juggernaut. I'd rather have Juggernaut. I'd rather have Juggernaut. Well, probably maybe it's close here. I'd rather have Juggernaut. Rather have Juggernaut. Rather have Juggernaut. Rather have Juggernaut. Rather have. Nope. This is the one I'd rather have Dracula on. Rather have Juggernaut. Rather have Juggernaut. Probably rather have Juggernaut. Like I don't know if there is a secure other than Intrusions that I am like super sold on Dracula being better than Juggernaut. I'm sure we can think of situations, but I'm curious if it's like one of those. Yeah, and then you can use them both together, which is cute. But I think like I'm a little higher on Voodoo. Like I never thought Voodoo was bad, but I'm probably a little bit higher on him as in like acceptable. Let me rephrase it this way. There are, I think Juggernaut is a better 5 than Dracula for this list. Big bumps, good displacement, and just the shit that I play, it's probably better to have Juggernaut. Let's start there. I do love Dracula a lot, and I think he's really good in Convocation. And then take the next step that there's a lot of times where I would play Dracula with Juggernaut. Let's just say the 18, right? Voodoo, Magic, Taskmaster, Wong, Dracula, Juggernaut. It's probably just better to play, instead of Dracula Taskmaster, just to play Rhino Voodoo. Or Voodoo Shang. Just play 4-4. Just play 2 better 4s. Not that Taskmaster's bad. He's actually very obnoxious and, I really should treat him less like a anchor and more like this is actually a very obnoxious model in convocation with bumps and stuff. But I think there's a world where you just look at those two and go, yeah, that could be just two really good fours, and you're probably pretty happy there. Even like Voodoo Magic Taskmaster as a core, and then adding like Juggernaut Rhino as opposed to going. That's a 19. I mean, that's fair. That's fine there too. Yeah, just that kind of idea of like I think Dracula being a 4 and a 4/4 instead of 5/3, like with a Taskmaster Dracula thing, is probably just overall like fine. Like even on intrusions, I mean it's still gonna suck. Like intrusions is still gonna suck, and I don't think he solved it to the point of like he won me the thing, and I still need to think about that. But I don't know. We can figure out a solution there. I think Dracula could be cut. You'd probably cut Warpath depending on what you brought in, but it depends on what you brought in. If you needed a card or not, I would probably cut Warpath or I Am a Baron. I still don't like I Am a Baron that much, but so what would I replace him with? I think the only mod. Okay, so here's kind of my post thing. I would probably cut Dracula for something and see how it felt. Because running 3/5s, you don't run them all at the same time, and I think the instances where Dracula was like clearly the one I wanted was growing smaller and smaller, especially like I just think Jugs is better on most of the stuff I'm doing, and Jugs Rhino is probably like it's kind of more interesting to say like I think Jugs and Rhino is both very strong in convocation, and you can take them at every threat level above 17. You just start with this, and then you add in Voodoo at 18, you add in Strange at 19 if you want, or at 20 you can take two variations of it. So I just think that combo is really good. And you can do Shangs in there as well. What would I replace him with? I think there's two ways to go. I think you, and then we've talked about this before. I think you could put a 6 in. I don't know which 6 I would want. It depends on the situation too, right? Like, is your 6 to run 4 wide? Are you running like the guy Danny who ran 4 wide 17s? I feel like the 17 I just showed with Juggernaut Rhino. I don't know. I felt like that was better, but I guess it depends on the. I guess if you're going for like a priority control one, then maybe you want something that like can do a little bit more damage. Like I actually think I know Eric Wong talked about like Space Maul, and we've all talked about Space Maul. The nice part about Maul is like he really is like threatening turn one. Like Hulk is not as threatening as Maul is in some instances. Like the fact that Maul can Space Gem and like attack the midline turn one. Like if you set up across from Maul, like it can be really deadly. He also is a safe grab that kind of has some interesting play to it. He's really good with a lot of power. His card is really good. He's probably like the one that like I keep coming back to and being like, should you not? He kind of fits there. He doesn't really solve like the intrusion problem air quotes, but I don't know. He's an interesting one for sure. Maybe one day I'll try Maul again. I mean, King Black Bolt is probably not terrible. He's tanky. He can get rid of conditions, which is good on himself. He can move friendly models. It's kind of funny. I don't want to admit it, but let's just look at him for a second. I think actually Curtis had just mentioned him to me before this video. Like he's kind of funny if you ever want to run the 20. Like the thing is like he's kind of funny with Wong because can you do anything cool with Wong? I don't know. I guess you can bump a lot and like you're tanky and you can move people with your attacks. I don't actually know if he's good. You kind of want to play something that's funny with your splashes, right? So like it is kind of funny that you can play Juggernaut, King Black Bolt, and all the other these three at 19 because it gets a little interesting. Like you can do things like you can move Juggernaut like turn 1. If you give him a power, like if you give Black Bolt a power with Wong, it depends on the setup, right? And like it's not bad to like move Juggernaut, go pick up an extract or something like that, or move somebody and pick up an extract, whether you're putting them in safety or not. I mean, a small move. Let's think. I don't think it gets Voodoo in range. I mean, one thing it does with Voodoo is it gets him in range to walk on a midpoint and attack somebody. There are probably funny things you can do with Black Bolt, King Black Bolt in this roster. I mean, same with all of the sixes, right? At the same time, like you can do some pretty like Juggernaut and Maul is actually a lot of terrain stuff, like with Do You Know Who I Am, and you know the backside thing, and then obviously Small having the size 4 throw. Too bad you can't run them all together. I do. No, that's only 15 threat. I was like, man, I'm gonna run Small Juggernaut Rhino on Fisk. I have enjoyed Small on. Shockingly, I've played him on Fisk before and done just fine. I think if you do it like a turret damage type thing, he can be okay. I think the other model that kind of comes to mind, if you don't want to go 6 and maybe even replacing Zemo, God forbid, is Mummy. You know, I've played Mummy before in my webs, or not in my web, against webs. I played him in my convocation. Fuck webs. And I think, you know, with Magic being a very good damage dealer, like, I don't know, man. I understand why Zemo's good. I'm not here to tell you he's not the best 3 in the game, but man, he is not that, like, he does feel more like I don't like calling it a slot machine. Somebody said a slot machine. Where you're just like, fuck, man, I'm going to charge with my 5 dice and do no damage. Like, he definitely was, like, the biggest letdown from an attack perspective. And I think that it's not necessarily his fault as much as it is, like, my expectations, right? If he can only charge, he is 5 dice with 1 reroll. That's it. Like, that is not that special. Like, Magic has just as good as attacks as him, pretty much. She has a Wild Pierce. So, and her spender is way better. Like her, like, potential with Plains of Poldock is, like, one thing I kind of like about Mummy is, like, if you say I'm a Baron, like, Mummy lets you bring in Plains of Poldock even with just Magic, and now you have 2 people who are really good at, like, blasting. So I can see Mummy either replacing Zemo or taking Dracula's spot and not having a 6, because that also gets you some interesting, like, super wide teams. Like, you could run these guys and Zemo, Mummy at 18, which is a pretty interesting, like, really wide 18. Like, you have 2 fighting models, you have 2 kind of tanky models, you have a steal, you have a healer. Like, it's kind of like that Webs-esque, like, feel to it. Is it as good as Webs? Probably not. But it kind of has that feel, like, you do damage. Like, Magic, Zemo, Mummy, Voodoo, like, you can do some shit with that. Taskmaster's just fine. He's a really good model. I actually keep talking shit about him, but, like that team is probably okay. Like, the really wide stuff. So one thing, I guess, if I was to stick with Convocation, so where Convocation land for me right now is, I think this roster in front of you is very fun. I think there are worlds where you can change out inhuman weapons for something. Unfortunately, it didn't feel as good as I wanted it to. I know it's not bad with, like, the midline punish stuff, but it didn't feel as good as I wanted. I think Samples is fucking amazing with Convocation, so I would definitely keep that in. So I think you could maybe run something faster if you wanted. I don't even know what. I mean, honestly, with the 17 I just talked about, Cubes is not even that bad. Like, Juggernaut, Rhino, Taskmaster, Wong, Magic should be fine at Cubes. Like, they're all, like, you have the stacking, so Rhino's good at it. You have damage reduction with Juggernaut and Rhino, so it'd be tankier. You have Wong heals. It's not the worst. You're not, like, running people who will, like, instantly die to the cube damage. So that's an interesting one, Cubes. And stacking them on Juggernaut is actually pretty, it's fine. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's something I would consider actually running. If they ever, like, ban Terrigenesis, I think it really, like, opens up running back, like, Skrulls or civilians. You can still run them if you're not worried about that, but, like, as far as hedging against Inhumans, which I haven't played in a while, like, I'd probably put in the Senators. I do think, like, this team is a really good decent Senators team. Like I said, I think you can go Strange, Wong, Magic, Juggernaut, Rhino. I think you can go Voodoo over. It wouldn't be 19 if that's the case. I think you can run some really strong center teams with this setup. Yeah, I think you'd be pretty good on Senators in this setup. I really like Rhino. Shang is fine. I don't use him as much. I can see Dracula just being gone. I like him a lot as a model, but I think Juggernaut's come in and kind of taken the wind out of his sails. I think you can also do something where you could potentially try to solve. I think you have to have a 3 that's not these. So I think this has to be some sort of 3. But if you want to, there's potential you could solve something weird by having this be a more obscure 3 and then Dracula being. I guess one thing I forget is you always have Taskmaster as a 3. So like, I guess it doesn't work here because he's a 3, and if you want to go really tall, it's not going to help. But like I'll give you an example. Just God forbid, this is not happening. But if this was Hulkbuster, right? Like you have Avengers models to play. Like with between Voodoo, Shang-Chi, and Taskmaster, you have 3 Avenger models. So you could run a 17 with just Avengers. I mean, you could run a 17. It doesn't even have to have Taskmaster. You could run, something big. You could run the big boy, right? This, and this. Damn, you're always one threat short. Like the problem is, like, if you want to run 5 wide, like, you need a 6 that, like, works with the other ones. But, I guess, like, if you ran a leader in one of these 2 spots, like, even, like, a Sam Wilson instead of Zemo, like, it's probably not good. There's a world where I was like, if this was Sam Wilson and this was Hawk, or something else that was really good with Sam, if you could think of a really good Sam 19 that could fight on intrusions, I don't know if Sam can fight intrusions. Then you can kind of like make it like you're like, oh, I have Shang and Sam, and okay, Taskmaster's not great, but he's tanky enough. Let's just go with it. And you would just need to take like a card. That's going somewhere I don't want to go right now. Let's not think about that. But maybe Hulkbuster. What could Hulkbuster do? If you put Hulkbuster here, is there any 19 that's like kind of interesting? No, that's gross, right? You're not gonna run Voodoo, Juggernaut, Hulkbuster, Shang. Ugh. That sounds gross. And you can't do anything else unless you go wide, where you drop him. You run these 2 in Hulkbuster, but then you don't get anything for it because, you don't have enough good models for that. Intrusion just sucks. I don't know. Maybe there's something out there I'll think about. But I think in this particular roster, Dracula would be dropped. Mummy would maybe come in no matter what. Even for Zemo. I just like having a tanky model. Like having Zemo and Magic next to each other, and even like Voodoo to some extent. Like sometimes they just fucking die before they get to go. And like, since you play Magic a lot, like having both Magic and Zemo can sometimes feel a little odd. But Mummy has a difference. I mean, on Intrusion, Mummy's worse because, like, if you're assuming you're on the point, like Mummy bumping, like Zemo bumping off the Intrusions to then charge back on to not get double tapped is a lot better than Mummy being like, oh, I bumped off the Intrusion because I don't want to get double tapped. Now I can't go anywhere. But Mummy's also just much harder to kill, and like you get souls. This is my life. But yeah, this roster was really fun. I think I might trade this for like Senators or Cubes and see how that rolls, see if it feels good. I think that 17 I talked about has started feeling so much better that like I actually really like. I'm trying to be like, that could be like a go-to 17 even, which is crazy to say. But I think there's a lot of 17s you can run with this. And then like I said, with that's 8. Yeah, you don't have enough. You need another 3. If you had 2 more 3s, you could run 6 wide 17, but I don't think that's good. I don't think the 3s are good enough in this roster. But like the 6 wide 18 with taking Voodoo and then like 2 3s, I think has a lot of merit too. I don't know when I would run it. I mean, there's probably pay to flips where like, that still doesn't feel like a good pay to flip team, does it? Like that does not feel like a good Mad Men team. I don't know. Squad second one was very fun. I don't know what I'm going to play next. I always have this like convocation is there. I'm not giving up on them by any means, but also you kind of want to try something new. Probably for like TTS finals, I'll take them. But maybe I don't really want to play them in lunch meets anymore. I'm just kind of like, why would I play the same thing over and over again in lunch meets? So we'll see what I do from there. Thanks for listening.